A comment recently posted by someone I'm grateful for, someone who makes a difference. That person said,
"Hearing testimony of how much people love Kylie is touching. It also strengthens the connection with creators who are passionate about helping the voiceless victims of horrific crimes. I appreciate knowing that loved ones of Kylie are telling us about her life experiences and continuing hope for her justice. Thank you for your videos that keep Kylie's loving spirit alive."
I'm not for the games. I'm not gonna play. Over time, my focus in this channel has changed. I started on the belief that if people were already talking about scary things, other people who were terrified to discuss in person would have an opportunity online to get it off their chests. If there was steam, there would be a whistle, so to speak.
Not long after she died, on August 16, 2022, I got a devil-like feeling inside, and then it progressed to a sense of urgency that's frankly never left my side. A sense of urgency that there was something about Anthony Tony Neiman that I needed to take a look at. It was like a premonition, as I also immediately saw some kind of role where I'd be saying things about it later. Cold, hard truth. It was like other premonitions I've had in this life, only much stronger and carrying more of a sense of time is running out than any of the ones before.
It came on strong this time. I needed to look into Tony and get some talking done. That was the message that popped into my head that morning as I entered the shower. For no reason at all, and by the time the shower was done, I figured I better take a peek.
I figured that if I was right about these things, I'd find things that corroborated those suppositions along the way, and I figured that if a community was given a voice, anonymously, to let the truth out, that the truth would want so bad to be known that we'd undoubtedly learn more about those things. That we all would learn more if there was more. I started this channel in October 2022, after spending the entire months of August and September 2022 on Twitter engaging in anything and everything. Kylie. Learning everything we could, having become transfixed by her story, and out of concerns about child welfare and otherwise. I figured that if I was right about these things, I'd find things that corroborated those suppositions along the way, and I figured that if a community was given a voice, anonymously, to let the truth out, that the truth would want so bad to be known that we'd undoubtedly learn more about those things. That we all would learn more if there was more.
I learned to trust my feelings long ago when my date's stepsister was hit by a cement truck, an event I'd seen happening 3 days before in a dream. I'd felt uncomfortable for those 3 days, and then the word came that she was comatose, and it was unknown if she'd survive. I remember feeling like it was creepy as F that I had that premonition.
I remember thinking, I wish I'd have done something. I wish I'd have said something, and maybe if I did, she could have avoided being brain injured for life.
It was then that I also learned to trust those premonitions or déjà vu scenarios, and when strong ideas pop in my head with stronger feelings behind them. Strong feelings and dreams about events that haven't happened. Sometimes strong feelings and dreams about events that have.
Since then, I've learned to never just do nothing if I get one. Crying out for help with no tears, while we all tried to find Kiley. I knew after all of those years, and all of those jury trials, that the human mind sometimes cannot process information unless it's in baby steps, with the viewer's own intuition fully engaged in getting to the bottom of things. There are bridges in our minds we simply cannot cross unless we want to, and we do it seeking hope, and in the name of often hides across those bridges, and some people are too terrified to proceed. and that's somewhat of a norm if you are a local to the Truckee area and your parents attend particular churches, as those towns are full of lost souls following lost trails leading ultimately to people even consuming each other. Starting 160 years ago in Truckee with the Donner
about
Party.
childhood sexual abuse or otherwise. MILF Patrol. Blank, I'd like to blank. Mothers. Or is it really minors? I'd like to blank. That forms the MILF Patrol Kiely, Trin and Dante were referring to.
I knew people always felt better after they'd had a chance to talk. It was the start of a healing process to get the talking done, while the bright lights of a courtroom sometimes also truly helped them.
I therefore knew that if Kiley was right about her 35 claims, that there were other victims out there, living the daily life she'd known. I knew that if these theories were founded on fact, based on truth, and were absolutely real, then those people needed a way to share about the Kiely Rodni case, as they were flat terrified otherwise of talking about it. It had to be done anonymously. They literally couldn't talk about it without placing themselves and their families in jeopardy should anyone come right out with it and say what needed to be said, and if they got the talking even started, let alone done. So communications would be done in code, in a pantomime fashion, if at all.
I also knew that a case involving child sex trafficking, especially where that child was deceased, was an exceedingly difficult case to prove. I knew that it takes more than circumstantial evidence to felony convict. I knew that if an attempt were to be made to prove such a tough case, that there would need to be a lot of evidence pointing to the likelihood of proving beyond a reasonable doubt as is needed in a criminal setting. I knew we needed more to go on to meet the standard of probable cause.
So, after 40 years litigating, I started taking these best shots at what it looked like to me to really try and see their plight through this looking glass.
I also felt like there was urgency to what we were doing, and that we needed to act with haste, and it frankly continues to feel that way. Sending out an SOS. Emergency.
I knew after 40 years in the law that if Pandora's box was opened, and if there was the truth flowing out of it, it would likely come flooding out, and we would learn more and learn what to do to compensate.
If you've been here a while and managed to stay tuned to my very not normal editing style and difficult to think about content, I believe that is because we are finally trying to move the ball forward. Most of us here have crossed those bridges in our minds already about the Truckee Way and about the trinity of 16-year-olds who all died in suspicious ways. Those 3 dead kids we should perhaps try to remember as the Truckee 3 whenever discussing the Idaho 4.
If there's enough light, there will always be enough traction to get the talking done and the truth becoming known. It's that simple. The more you learn, the more you know. It's wisdom.
It starts with opening a dialogue about their Pandora's box. In hindsight, had I known her story would be so horrifying, I would have quit my job and tried even harder out of the blocks. There's urgency here.
When I started this channel, I really thought I'd get flamed and face Twitter or YouTube's wrath and get hate mail and lots of people calling me names. I figured if I was wrong, I'd see signals I should stop because I was way off base. I wouldn't have to risk my reputation for being the guy that can always find the truth. I wouldn't have to risk my mental health by sticking my neck out for very long. I figured this would be over quick. I get shot down, and that would be that. Simple.
And yet, here we are. We are here because of you all. We're here, 16 months later, with people not flaming, but instead a lot of people from that area getting the needed talking going. We've been listening. Squirrels on Fire, ERA, CCDV, Saw Logie, Justice A to Z, and a lot of other people caring. We've been listening, and some of us change our based upon your input along the way. The world cares about your town's 3 lost 16-year-olds, and we heard you peeps from the devil's towns and around Truckee.
I believe there's nothing that cannot be solved with enough input from the hive mind. Crowdsourcing from people who are intuitive or people in the know, and from people with the skills it takes to find the truth, no matter how hard it might be looking that way. Through the anonymous guidance of the hive mind, and that this started with Kiley's careful and methodical way of getting us all to a point where it dawns on all of us eventually. Her slow roll. Telling her story a piece at a time, all 35 ways. Her story wanting to be known so badly it tells itself.
Some bridges are quite difficult to cross, and some are even more difficult to prove exist at all.
After 40 years of litigation, I can tell you from experience that if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and swims like a duck, in the long run it's well, you know. We don't always need to directly see the duck to know it is there.
For a jury to conclude beyond a reasonable doubt takes numerous facts that all stack neatly once they are viewed in the proper light. Then, and only then, jurors can conclude the answers completely on their own, sometimes even crossing difficult bridges for the first time. Facts all have to click into place on their own in rapid succession for the juror to feel confident calling out it's a duck if they haven't been able to see it.
Kiley gave us at least 35 facts which stack neatly in addition to 3 giant flares from which we could surmise. Her song Far Away, her song The Fiddlin' Man, and her fearsome look while singing Cowboy Joe being all 3. She knew we'd discover her story if we only looked closely enough, if we kept looking long enough, and if we tried hard enough.
After 40 years litigating and after the last 16 months feeling and breathing all of Kiley's story in, and after such helpful input as I've been honored to receive from each of you, her situation is so clear I can say that I've really never been more certain of anything else in my entire life. It's a duck. It's always been a duck. Ducks that are hard to talk about. MILF patrols are even harder to talk about, but here we are. Proof is in the pudding sometimes.
In the end, I haven't been able to talk myself out of it. These are heartfelt statements from deep inside much like the other comments we've been sharing together from a year ago. Heartfelt statements that guide us and help focus energy on their efforts to get the word out. I appreciate all of you.
I think there's a raging fire inside of homes in and around Truckee, but not the kind that burn woods, sadly. I'm literally afraid there are many other kids in Kiley's or Trinity's or Dante's situation. My biggest fear is that even though Kiley got her messages out, and there were echoes sending similar messages that soon followed, that the general population isn't ready to consider their plights seriously, and that people will recoil from these topics and move on, go about their days, and that the remaining children from the Devil's Towns will not be saved. Kiely Rodni's counterparts leading trafficked lives, and that such trafficking breeds like a fire in these homes, these B&Bs serving as hidden palaces off the grid for the depraved elite. Places like Epstein's Island.
I fear these messages, while heard, will be left alone and not fully investigated, and that many other children from that community will have similar lives or fates. Some going missing and mysteriously suffering bizarre, quote, accidents, whoa, at an all too tender age. There's only one thing that's terrifying enough to cause 3 young kids to want to check out all at once. And we now understand better from where such fears are based. We understand better because of all of the talking being done.
I hope that with the conversations started by the movie Sound of Freedom last year will allow us to continue to have these difficult discussions. Taking a patient approach to this. I hope others will look closer at some of these factors themselves, and seeing these lights will also try and sound their alarm. It is my hope that we can change the way we do things to protect kids like me, or ones mired in sex trafficking, like Kiley, like Trinity, and like Dante. Three 16-year-old kids suffering a sudden demise, and the prospects of other similarly situated kids in that area is nightmare fuel that often keeps me up at night. Nightmares fueled by the pledges long sworn by the townspeople of the Devil's Towns, pledges all townies in the area find themselves forced to make.
Right now might be the best time to get the talking going. Talking about Kiely Rodni, talking about Dante de la Torre, talking about Trinity, and the 100 teens that have died young before them since the 1980s in and around those towns. Getting that talking going in a way that opens the doors for the ones involved to possibly be saved by telling the whole truth. We must help them break down barriers first, as they may fear talking about this more than death itself. If everyone's talking about these things, they can finally get their taking done just by pointing to or joining this type of conversation. It's about justice. Let's keep talking until justice truly is done. Let something positive come from such nightmares.
Thank you all for being there for the Truckee 3. Being there for Kiley. Being there for Trinity. Thank you all also for being there for Dante. Being there for Truckee. Out of the pure need for integrity.
We all need to keep talking. I really believe we're getting there now. Let's get it all out there and heal from these wounds, handed down generation after generation for what seems like well, you know.
This is about justice, something I care very much about. This is about truth, which I cherish above all else.
It's in all of our own searches for the chalice of truth that we have sought trying to find Kiley. Searches focused on getting justice for Kiely, Rodni, and her friends. Efforts we've made searching for answers while looking at various facets of the evidence in both careful and considered lights. On this channel and many others, everyone knowing it was necessary to keep this ball rolling, to get this stuff talking started, and keep the pedal down until it's done. Please keep talking. Never stop. Don't give up on justice for the Truckee 3. Don't give up on those other kids walking a day in their shoes, even now in abject dismay, holding on to the hope that one day soon help might be on the way. Calling out for support through 3 lost souls.
We're here because of posterity, because it felt right to go here, because Kiely corroborated and cobbled together a lot of these facts, and because we cannot and never will stop until a new day is beholden for some. When the dawn shines on them brightly and when the justice has been done,
we can all take some rest then, if and when that day ever comes, so please keep helping keep up the momentum. Getting there will take help from all of you, gathering input from the hive mind. Please keep talking. Never stop. Please keep the pedal down until that dawn arrives. I have spent 40 years fighting lawyers, solving case after case after case, being the guy that finds things, and I felt an enormous tug from Kiely's family and friends all calling out to everyone for help from the sounds of those cries. So many other children live the same reality that
Please like, subscribe, and share.
They can take her out of this world, and the physical, but thanks to videos like yours, they can never take her from the hearts of millions, and she lives on through us. I hope she haunts everyone that ever harmed her.
Kyle's doggy dog is still waiting for Kylie to come home, and I bet you that Doc knows where Kylie is. And I can tell that Doc missing his little
For sure.
mother Kylie. And God, I really believe that Kylie is getting her justice right now.
And because it
And
sounds a
God
lot
bless
like
everyone.
doves crying,
Thank you so much for always
like
spreading
people who
Kylie
cannot
love.
speak, still trying to get the word out
I've been
after
watching
nearly
them
2
pausing and
years
thinking
of
and
getting
looking
there.
up different things since I got home from work 5 hours ago. Tell her story. Tell it all.
Some of us were born to seek justice, just a natural at it, from the very beginning. Something about their makeup makes them perfect at their job. Others learn to seek justice as a matter of recompense, payback, righting a wrong, or avenging a dead family member. Some take the law into their own hands, avenging a family name out of alleged honor. Most of us have learned the hard way that justice lives and breathes as a sign of hope, of there being a righting of wrongs and a climactic resolution to events that require justice to blindly wield her sword. Often several years following the events, we set out on this journey together, all of us, to try and find Kylie, and I set out just like you did, her face, name, and plight all over the nightly news. Every night, for weeks, I set out also on this journey to try and find justice for what my father had done, much like Peter and his wolf, seeking to pay it forward and point blank state that it's a live or die situation. Justice for your abuser. I set goals of trying to learn more about Kylie and convey what I'd learned about surviving ritual child abuse at the hands of my father and his father before him, spanning generation after generation of people with my last name, many of whom, like an unbroken chain, suffered abuse at the hands of their fathers or mothers. Such is the suffering from the inequities and tyrannies of evil men. Some of us were born to seek justice, and others learn to seek justice the hard way. I get up every day the same way I have every day since I was 3, with a stern look on my face. Defense is already up, full on survival mode, and always in a state of high alert, even when acting calmly. Thanks for that, Dad. I learned to seek justice and be patient sometimes for justice to make herself known. I learned to get it out, get the talking started, and move the needle towards getting the talking done. Letting my dad know, at the age of 35 hard long years, that I remember. Hell, I remember everything. Getting it off my chest. Telling him to his face he wasn't going to be permitted to be around my young son without supervision. Telling him as gently as possible, and telling him out of survival instinct, ingrained from my own toddler phase. Bad dad. Stand up for what's right. Stand up for yourself. Stand tall for your children. Do it right. Fight back. Don't surrender your heart. Break the chain. I now literally live for justice, as it's the only salve for so many deep wounds. I have been a trial paralegal for almost 40 years. I am a trial paralegal still, seeking justice in actual courtrooms, where I've seen jurors over the span of decades walk at a certain cadence just prior to rendering their verdict. A cadence just as reverent as the proverbial walk down the aisle. Just as reverent as if it were a royal privilege, as jurors, to have played such an important role. They walk differently when the talking is done. and they have reached their decision, and there's a real sense of having righted wrong on their faces. Every single time. Warriors for justice, they had also become. A warrior for justice I have become. A fiend for the juice. The flow of stress-induced adrenaline. I live for the quiet before the storms. The look of people's souls walking into the courtroom the first time. Blinking at the bright lights and then settling in, and ultimately not being nervous at all while testifying as simply the truth wants to be known. Even the witnesses in courtrooms experienced a huge amount of relief having got it off their chests. Talking about what matters so that jurors can have all the facts needed to make their decision. Every case, every trial date set, pure justice and pure adrenaline. Yet even with my 40-year legal background, and even after seeing hundreds of photos of deceased victims or mangled metal from car crashes, I have been taken completely aback by the Kiely Rodni story. I have never been drawn to a case like this one before. I've never seen a case like this one before. There's never been any situation that could have prepared me for some from a community of souls who literally cannot speak, reaching out to us on YouTube and offering information and being supportive in the process. Playing a role in Kiely Rodni's case by sharing her story and her messages and doing it in a measured, careful pace, much like the cadence of a juror whose mind's made up, or the walk of a witness whose heavy burden is no more. It's not up to them anymore. They got the talking done. Thank you for sharing for the sake of sharing, and for helping keep their names out there by keeping their hearts' lights on. We aren't going to let this one slide. Not this time. Please keep talking. We need to keep moving the bar forward so those involved can heal. So the community can heal and so that changes can occur that might help others like her or in her situation. We need to reach verdicts. And after watching 40 years of jurors and 40 years of trial witnesses and being a part of the actual mechanisms of justice, I will say this about the Kiely Rodni, Trinity Backus, and Dante de la Torre cases. I am humbled by their cases, their cries for help. I stand humble before you. This channel started on a hunch, as an effort to gather more information so I could talk myself out of it. Talk myself out of pushing as hard as I humanly know how to do professionally, personally, or otherwise. Taking my best shot at a very difficult case. In 40 years of trusting a hunch and having it proved right most of the time, I can spot hallmarks of the truth in cases. The truth gleams like a shimmering light inside of the facts sometimes, begging for the light of day. And in these 40 years as a crusader for the very chalice of truth itself, I have never been so sure these hunches were right. Perhaps it's all confirmation bias. But I've never been this sure before, and that's in large part due to Kiely's messages and feedback from all of you. Sure enough to take a swing at it. Whether or not my aim is as true as Kiely Rodni's, and whether or not it makes a difference, I do know this. I've never been this sure before of anything, really, as sure of something this terrifying. As sure other kids are involved. As sure bad actors played roles requiring recompense. This ain't over. We've been ginning for justice, as I have my whole life. And we're gonna see this through. 3 dead 16-year-old children, all from the same community, and all within a single season. That was the price for these messages to be sent and to be received by you and me. The price of getting the talking started. Such a huge cost. We must not fail in this quest. May careful jurors feel the flow of justice pulsing through their veins prior to delivering their lawful verdicts, whatever they may be. May we all have the courage to keep moving this needle forward, as it points to difficult to talk about places, yet move it forward we must. I believe a lot of kids could be counting on it, hoping for it, believing in their hearts that there's no way for them to keep a lid on it. No effing way. Not this time. They ask too much of their kids in the devil's towns near Truckee. I wish we were wrong about all of these things. Yet we're likely not wrong. Are there others walking in her shoes praying constantly that Kiley didn't die in vain? That Trinity did not pass without notice? That Danny's passing matters too? And that those lights would outshine all of the noise and get the word out so people can help them? Thoughts of the other kids keep me up at night. You all need to fight back. Don't surrender your hearts. Don't give up. Instead, break the chain. Free your minds. Manifest justice, and there it will live and breathe, surrounded by truth, wrapped in courage and following pure determination to do so.